that. And usually this Sunday's class will be posted to YouTube by next Thursday. So welcome everybody to our continuing study of the Unity Correspondence Course from over 100 years ago, originally put together under the direction of our co-founder, Charles Fillmore. It's a series of lessons that were created for people who are coming to Unity. In the early days, it didn't necessarily have a center to go to and study together. So it was an old idea, correspondence courses. I don't know, do we do that anymore? I guess with the internet, we just have automatic correspondence courses together. But we've been studying, we went through the first chapter together a while ago, and we're now on the second lesson, which is on healing. And we're coming to the end of that. But before we do that, we'd like to start with the daily word. So I'm going to put the daily word up and invite somebody to, anybody who would like to do it, to read it for us. As our electronics make it possible. Would somebody be willing to read the word for us?
I will.
Okay, thank you.
Sunday, April 6th, it's assurance. I live with the assurance of my divinity. There may have been times I doubted my ability to create the life of my highest imaginings and resigned myself to living a limited life. Today, I make a new choice. I see myself as fully divine and fully human. I am so much more than my past, even if I have made regrettable decisions or disempowering choices. I have the assurance that with each new day, I can begin again and build the life I want to live. As I pray, I feel the limitations of the world fall away. In the silence, I feel the presence of God and the fullness of my own divinity. This is the enduring truth of who I am. I affirm, I am strong, I am creative, I am wise. I leave the past behind and eagerly create my future, assured of my eventual success. By this, we know that we abide in him and he in us because he has given us of his spirit. That's from 1 John 4:13.
Thanks, Lillian. So today's word, I live with the assurance of my divinity. I live with the assurance of my divinity. Let's affirm that together. I live with the assurance of my divinity. Let's take that in. That's the truth that animates our daily lives. There's nothing but God. There's only the one presence, one power, one love, active in our lives right now. God, the good, omnipotent. So last week we were reading paragraphs 20, 21, 22, 23, and now we're moving to the very last section of the healing lesson. This one's called Universal Treatment. And there's a couple of paragraphs to read here, and we can split them up and take them one at a time. So who would like to start us off by reading number 23?
Can do it. I don't mind.
Okay, thank you.
I'm Janet, and the question is it right to give a treatment to any person who has not requested it? The question sometimes arises, is it right to treat anyone without his consent? In solving this problem, we should know that free will is every man's God-given right, and no one is justified in interfering in any way with the freedom of another. But also, we should take into consideration the fact that if we think of another at all, our thoughts carry responsibility because we must think of him either as he is in truth or as he appears to us. If we hold him in negative appearances, the power of our thought goes out against him and has a tendency to fix him more firmly in adverse conditions. If we think of him as he is in truth, in being, God, we help to set him free. In a sense, this might be called treating, but it is what we term holding him in the universal. We do not interfere with another's free will when we hold him in the universal, because we hold no thought that he shall do this or that specific thing. And then, want me to read note 1?
Please.
Okay. Note 1 says, holding him in the universal. Metaphysically understood, the universal is the one life force, the creative universal life, even God. This life is eternal and infinite, from everlasting to everlasting. By holding one in the universal, we recognize the urge toward perfection. In man, this urge is the spiritual seed of the Christ, which ever seeks to unfold its divine nature.
Thanks, Janet.
Done.
So, any thoughts on this paragraph?
Makes me think of namaste.
Okay.
My question is, does this mean then that we should not pray for other people if we're not supposed to interfere with them? That's a little confusing to me. You know, we can hold him in good thoughts, but for instance, if you're praying for someone who has a health challenge, is that not a good thing to do? Or is that's certainly not interfering if you're praying for the good for that person? What do you think?
Why don't you hold that question off till we read the whole section and see if
Oh.
your question gets answered? I don't know, but usually
I'm ahead of myself, am I?
you always are, Diane. So that's
No.
but I think maybe more information about this will come as we complete the reading.
Okay.
Any other questions or thoughts about this paragraph 23?
I'd almost like to hear it again.
Okay, go ahead.
The question sometimes arises, is it right to treat anyone without his consent?
And remember what we mean by treat. We talked about that last week. So treatment is prayer treatment, or affirming the reality of someone, of the truth for any of us. Go ahead, Lillian.
Yeah, is it right to treat anyone without his consent? In solving this problem, we should know that free will is every man's God-given right, and no one is justified in interfering in any way with the freedom of another. But also, we should take into consideration the fact that if we think of another at all, our thoughts carry responsibility because we must think of him either as he is in truth or as he appears to us. If we hold him in negative appearances, the power of our thought goes out against him and has a tendency to fix him more firmly in adverse conditions. I'm thinking of something current. If we think of him as he is in truth, in being God, we help to set him free. In a sense, this might be called treating, but it is what we term holding him in the universal. We do not interfere with another's free will when we hold him in the universal, because we hold no thought that he shall do this or that specific thing. Well, I'm wondering, is it like if we think negative thoughts about a person, does that hold any, weight?
I think it's kind of saying, well,
oh golly, pray with me for my blah 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 because she's so blah blah blah, and we need to like, help her, as opposed to, because in that thought of the action of praying, you brought that person down into a negative space in your consciousness. And I think what he's saying, that it could affect hers. So if you're going to do anything related to her, affirm that she's a child of God and unfolding in divine, or something that's kind of more just neutral or to the positive, as opposed to, telling,
Reinforcing the
reinforcing the illusion of the negativity, of the negative space. I think that's what it's saying. But I don't know, it's kind of asserting that we have power. Even though they have free will, we have power by our negative thoughts over that person.
Mm-hmm.
And as I read it, the power of that negative thought is about us, not about that person.
Oh.
Well, tell me more about that.
It says if we hold him in negative appearances, the power of our thought goes out against him and has a tendency to fix him more firmly in adverse conditions. And where is that fixing happening? It's happening in our mind.
That's a good interpretation. I think you're right.
If we think of him as being in truth, then we're also putting ourselves back into that universal reality.
I think I tried to not think at all, and I tried to take the prayer list and put the person's name, just their name, even if I don't know them, and then surround them in the light and ask that the Christ consciousness fill their spirit. Because it took me a long time to learn to not pray for outcomes. That's where it started. I wanted to tell God how to fix it. And then I had to back that out and say what Claudia just said. This way of framing things that really are negative is really dangerous for myself and the other person. So I finally gave up thinking about anything on the prayer list, and I just individual names and try to hold them in the light of Christ. And that's the best I can do. It's probably a terrible failure, but it's all I can do.
Can I insert a little bit of levity here?
Yes.
Would you be open to a joke?
Sure.
Okay, so here it is. I was at a conference with a Christian comedian, and this is what she said. In my church, we do not gossip. We absolutely do not gossip. We just bow our head and we say, "Oh, Jesus, please pray for Sister Mary, whose husband left her with 4 little kids, and she's drinking again. Please help her."
That's great. Yeah.
I think that kind of illustrates this point of, when you go down that rabbit hole of negativity in calling out someone who you're loved, that you love, all the adversity that you're seeing, whether it, the illusion that you're seeing, you give it some energy. And as Marty says, maybe you lock it in to your own mindset, and that's how you think of the person.
Sort of like a Christian Harper Valley PTA there.
That's very helpful, Claudia.
Why? Because I did it in a Southern accent.
My Southern ears heard it, but I'm also, I've been thinking a lot this morning and even yesterday about a long time, golly, 60-year relationship with a woman, and we've been continuously in contact and all that. And, we got snippy with one another in a text exchange, and I've been thinking, wait a minute, I was being as sincere as I could be. She was being her, and so it kind of helps me to see both sides and how I'm making her more that way. because of course there's nothing to be done here.
Yeah. Nothing to see on this side of the house. It's all
Yep.
Anything else? Were you ready to move on to the next paragraph? Who would read 24 for us and the note?
I would.
Okay.
Another point arises here. If a man is in bondage to some habit, drugs, liquor, for instance, he thinks he wants the stimulant and sometimes feels that those who keep him from it are interfering with his free will. The fact is that it is not his will, but his sense of lack of some good that is demanding satisfaction. Thus, his will is in bondage to his unrighteous desire. Friends who love him and would save him have the right to declare for him the truth that makes free, that yet are not interfering with his right of choice. 2, free will. Our inherent freedom is to act as we determine. There can be no perfect expression without perfect freedom of will. If we determine to act in accord with divine law, we build harmony, health, happiness, and eternal life, which is heaven.
Thanks, Stella.
Well, that did say that we can declare for him the truth that makes free, yet are not interfering with his right of choice. So we can pray for him.
Okay.
Emily says in her book, in the chapter on Loose Him and Let Him Go, she says, if a friend drinks too much, don't call him a drunk. Just say he drinks too much. So, it's like, don't condemn the behavior. Just observe the fact, if you have to say anything at all.
One thing that occurs to me as we contemplate this interesting question is that there's only one thing going on in all reality. And so the notion that there's somebody over there with a problem is just a limiting thought, where in fact we are all one, and the substance, the universal substance of God, is we all participate in it. And so our thoughts have a relation or have an effect on the universe because we're an inescapable part of the universe. And so as we pray for someone else, as we treat someone else, we're freely, here's the free will thing, we're freely putting our loving energy into the reality. Just as the same as if we condemn someone else, we're freely putting our condemnatory negative energy into circulation. The whole principle of healing that we read in the first 20 odd paragraphs here says that healing occurs because there's the universal truth, the universal energy that we all participate in. And that our thoughts are what activate or create manifestation based on our choice of what to think.
I kind of think when you pray affirmatively for someone else at that level that we're talking about, I see you as a child of God. I see you whole and healthy. Not going into that joke that I told, but at that affirmation level, you're raising yourself to your highest consciousness.
Right.
And then meeting them on the plane of their highest consciousness. And that's the free will part. for them is if that might lift them up because you're kind of giving them you're in your consciousness, giving them support, a little boost. Or that might not affect them at that point in time because they may choose to not be healed, whatever that is that, they're experiencing. That may be something that they need to be a little longer in for their soul's journey. I don't know. But the point is that because we're talking about what we can do, is we can be at that point of that space of just, I see you for who you are. I know you for who you are, and I support and love you for who you are, that child of God on a journey. And that might be all we need to do.
Mhm.
And what a powerful practice that is.
Well, it frees the person who's praying too, because you don't have to go through and enumerate all the list. You just
Yes.
have to kind of hold it at that highest level of, I see you whole and healthy. Well, I'm going to say it this way. I see you whole and as a child of God. I have a good friend who's going through hospice right now, and I just learned today that he's been approved for the drugs. So I'm not going to pray for him for healing of his body, but I can pray for him for harmony and peace as he continues his journey and for his family. I mean, so maybe that's what we should be doing for every friend that we have, that just harmony and peace. And I don't know. I also remember what Dorothy said, which is we all die healed. So maybe healed, but at that level.
Mhm.
Well, because we can't know for anybody else what the other person's inner sense of peace or disquiet is. And we can see them whole, healed, healthy, peaceful. Somebody be willing to read the 25th paragraph here? Maybe this will tell us more.
And so number 25, in all prayer, the secret place of the Most High must be recognized as the point of mystical union between man and spirit. Emily Cady, Lessons in Truth, 9:10. Therefore, the body of every man should be blessed with the understanding that it is the temple of God, wherein the secret place may be contacted. Healing is sometimes slow in manifesting because the temple has been profaned with the thought that it is merely physical, flesh and blood, and not worthy of a place in the divine plan of salvation. Such a thought can and must be overcome by statements of truth such as these. And then the note number 3. Did you want me to read the note?
Well, before you read the note, let's read the statements here at the top of the second column, where it says, "My body is a temple."
Oh, okay. My body is a temple of the living God. The glory of his presence illumines and quickens and heals every cell and fiber with his wholeness. This temple is not material, but spiritual. Every cell is now alive with the life, substance, and intelligence of spirit.
Now we can go back down to that note.
Okay. It's number 3. Number 3, truth. The absolute that which accords with God as divine principle, that which is, has been, and ever will be, that which eternally is. The truth of God is reality, the same yesterday and today, yea, and forever. The verities of being are eternal and have always existed. Truth abides in fullness at the very core of man's being. As his consciousness or awareness expands, he touches the everlasting truth. What seems new is but the unveiling of that which always has been.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Any reactions or thoughts about this paragraph?
I really like what she said up there about at the top in terms of those affirmations that are coming from lessons in truth. And you know, it easily said your body is the temple of the living God. This temple is material, is not material but spiritual. And it's a good affirmation when we're praying for someone else.
One thing I've often done is like what you were just saying, Claudia, about I could just easily say your body is a temple of the living God. I often pray and say our bodies. So it's when I pray, I pray with the other person, not at the other person. I bring myself into a we community of affirmation.
That's
I
a
like,
really powerful suggestion.
yes, I like that. Mm.
Anybody like to read this little poem by Christy Lund Coles?
Sure, I will.
Okay.
This is beautiful. We can be healed. Each day, his healing word waits to be spoken as the living truth, waits to subdue the aching flesh and heal the fearful mind, waits for our growth. We can take up our bed and walk. We can reach upward. We can be healed. Christy Lund Coles. That's a great one for healing.
And the note there is just some biographical information about her.
Is that number 4? Okay. Would you like me to read that too? Okay.
I don't think we need to read it. You can read it on our own. It's just
Okay.
information about her. So this brings us to the end of the chapter on healing. And what I thought we might do is Mark, of course, in his utter thoroughness and all this stuff, has included the original annotations.
Mm.
And I don't think we're going to go through all of them, but I thought that it might be fun just to read the annotations on the first paragraph, because that will kind of remind us of what we've been through for the past 4 or 5 weeks as we've read this chapter. So it says at the top there, here are the annotations for lessons 2 healing. These questions and answers were used to grade papers, and so they represent the correct answers. We've included them in this course guide to provide a second look at what the Fillmores wanted their students and ministers to know. So anybody want to take a crack at reading?
Claudia will.
Is that praying for others?
doing what your big sister tells you. Help. What is the one way to help? The one way to help is through the I am, the Christ, in man, which is the law of his being. I am life. I am health. I am strong, capable, perfect. Conscious knowledge of I am identity, obedience to the law of our being, to the law of right thinking, result in health in soul and body. Health in a living organism means soundness in all respects. Soundness implies freedom from anything and everything that could not in any way weaken or corrupt man's consciousness of the original purity of the organism. God, divine mind, is the cause and the source of all living organisms and is absolute good, good in its perfection. I'm going to stop there so we can just take that in. Man achieves health, and so does woman, by returning to the source of life, learning and obeying the laws that govern the state of purity and soundness. The law of anything is in its governing principle, that which causes right and intelligent action in order to produce perfect results. As God is spirit, so are God's laws spiritual. As God is absolute good, so are God's laws, are the causes of the actions that produce universal good in all living expressions of God's being. To be whole, one must not only learn the laws of universal good, but also be obedient to them in every thought, feeling, word, action, and reaction. Since a perfect idea can produce only perfect results, the person who wants to have such results in their life must watch the thoughts or concepts in their mind. That is, they are building around the divine idea. They must entertain only helpful thoughts, because the law of manifestation for us is the law of thought. We must form clean mental habits and establish a loving attitude towards all creation. This is the doctrine that Jesus taught and proved by his living.
I think those last two lines says it all.
Can you tell us a little bit more about that, Lillian?
Well, it's very simple. They must entertain only helpful thoughts because the law of manifestation for us is the law of thought. Thoughts are things, you know how they're always telling us out there things, what we think, comes about. He must form clean mental habits and establish a loving attitude toward all creation. Ooh, wouldn't that be good? Yeah, this is the doctrine that Christ taught and proved by his living. It's so simple, huh?
Simple, just not easy.
So for those of us that would like to delve deeper into these notes, again, all of this stuff is available on the Truth Unity webpage and on the correspondence course. The link is in the email that I send out every week. So we're not going to go through each one of these, but it's just I wanted to give us a little taste or a little flavor of how this has been organized originally. And so we're going to wrap up this chapter on healing. And before we do, I just want to open it up to any last minute thoughts, questions, concerns, disagreements.
Marty, I have a question. Can you explain to me again what this little set of things is? It went with the original correspondence course, and it's been incorporated now into the new one in some way?
Yeah, I don't know that it's new. What's new is Mark's annotations.
But did he build them out of this set of things? Is this new information I should be trying to understand, or is it already covered? It's just said in a different way.
Well, to quote Janet, don't think about it.
Okay. That's great advice. I love that. I always feel guilty though. I think, oh, you need to concentrate. And I thought, well, I don't want to concentrate if this isn't new information, because if I already have concentrated before.
Yeah. The way I understand it is these are the original notes. I don't know if these went out to the students or these were used internally to grade people's responses. Remember, everybody got lesson 1 and there were 10 questions and people were to write their answers to those 10 questions, send them back to Tracy Avenue, and someone there would grade them according to these guides.
So was it one of the 10 questions, what is health? And then
what is one way to health? So these are all the questions.
Okay, so what is one way to health?
Explain what is meant by the statement, there is no reality in disease, et cetera, et cetera. And they were the way Mark had set this all up. He had already put those questions in the text that we read.
Yeah. And he must have put those same answers. He must have put the answers that were originally used. It's got to be in there somewhere.
Right. Well,
I would think.
The answers are all derived from the text. And so the section that we just read is derived from this. This is the original text of the beginning.
Okay.
So it's like the teacher's guide.
Yeah, I get it. Sort of.
And then these notes here are ones that Mark has added in. These are Mark's notes.
The ones that correspond to the numbers in the text.
Correct. The ones with the in the yellow circle, those are Mark's notes.
Okay.
Leo.
I wanted to go back to that poem, and I know the person that wrote
the last
it,
one that we read.
Yeah, she is an LDS. LDS, if I understand it correctly, was Latter-day Saints. Is that Mormon?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
I have a question, and that is, do any of you ever read Annalise Karin of LDS?
No.
Annalise Karin, because she is one of the persons that is really transfigurated. And she wrote 7 books, how she accomplished that. So I think Annalise should be, well, I think she would be a nice place here.
What's her name?
Annalise Karin. I will write it down.
Okay, thank you. So any other thoughts about the Unity approach to healing? And we've covered a lot, and we've shared a lot of really powerful ideas and insights.
Oh, what I like about this is that it is much better than what I learned of myself. So yeah.
Well, we learn from each other, don't we? Okay.
I would add that if any of you have watched the two videos that were mentioned in that Ed Rabel
Right.
was giving lessons to his class, I really found that I enjoyed them very much.
Great.
Has anybody else turned that on?
Nope, extra credit for you, sis.
No, I've played them several times. Now, don't ask me about them, but I've played them several times. One is about how to pray and forget the other. But anyway, I really enjoyed them.
Thank you. Thanks for the testimony.
Can you share more about that, Lillian? Maybe
Well, if
audiobooks?
If you if you turn on Marty's reference, it says here HERE. If you want to see that, you'll see two places toward toward the center or toward the end, where there's a video sign, and then it says that it's Ed Rabel.
They're in the notes.
Okay, gotcha. Thank you.
Okay, so the next lesson in our series here is the prosperity.
We're gonna have to print that out.
And so who would be willing to read this introduction? This is written by Cora Alexander, who is a participant in our Tuesday class, a licensed Unity teacher.
I'll read it.
Okay, thank you.
Introduction to Prosperity. Prosperity is a consciousness of peace, health, and plenty through the right use of substance. Substance is referred to as thought or mind stuff. It is the raw material out of which all things are made. It is the body of God or omnipresence. Substance is the spiritual foundation which stands under all visible things. We have the power to shape substance into the form of life, love, power, strength, faith, or any of our divine gifts. Everything begins in mind. Charles Fillmore, Unity co-founder, reminds us that through faith, we become conscious of substance as a living reality that we can intelligently direct and wisely use to satisfy every need.
Thanks, Gail.
Marty, do you remember when we were at Christ Unity on the board, the affirmation that Dorothy had us say? And for those of you who don't know, Dorothy Pearson actually started working at Unity under Charles Fillmore when she was about, I think, 22 years old or something like that, maybe even younger, 20. So she was really a protege of him and very much formed by his ideas. And so she would always have us say, as the board of directors, I am substance, I am substance, I am substance, abundant substance in God-filled mind fills my every need. And so what this paragraph here shaped or gave some foundation to that we always said every board meeting, so yeah. And that I still say to this day.
Thank you for that reminder. Appreciate that. And it is a good foundation for this lesson. Actually, it was a good foundation for the healing lesson too. So who would be willing to read the first couple paragraphs for us?
I will.
Okay, thank you.
Defining prosperity. What is prosperity? Explain fully. The first question that presents itself in the study of the subject is, what is prosperity? In this lesson, we shall seek to find the true meaning of the word. To find the true meaning of prosperity, we must get away from the belief of limitation in the realm of appearances and into the understanding of reality. In cleansing the soul consciousness of false beliefs concerning prosperity, the first to be erased is the belief that possession of things only constitutes prosperity. Such a belief is a false concept and has no place in truth. 3, true prosperity in a rich state of mind, a consciousness of rich ideas, a consciousness which recognizes the individual's oneness with infinite mind, with all the ideas of supply and service which inhere in that mind or mind essence. Another name for substance. Prosperity is the enrichment man gains inwardly through the right use of divine ideas. Prosperity is the consciousness of continued well-being man derives from an understanding of his source and sustenance, spirit, substance, mind, essence. Prosperity is a state of consciousness in which there is no lack of anything good, a consciousness of well-being. It is the consciousness of abundance based on an understanding of God as the inexhaustible resource of good, which is open to all men. One is prosperous to the extent that he is establishing a consciousness of peace, health, and plenty, and manifesting it in his world. Stop and give yourself a treatment for the cleansing and renewing of your mind on this point. Say, my understanding is quickened by the word of truth, and I no longer believe that, that prosperity consists only in possession of things. These are but manifestations of the inner working of ideas in mind. I acknowledge God, divine mind, with all its inherent ideas to be my unfailing and unlimited resource. Do you want me to go on?
Do you mind?
I need to cleanse my throat.
Yeah.
Okay, the first, prosperity metaphysically. Prosperity is a state of prosperity. Metaphysically, prosperity is a state of consciousness, the consciousness of God as the abundant, everywhere present resource, unfailing, ready for all who open themselves to it through faith. 2, possession. Prosperity. Possession is not prosperity. The difference between spiritual prosperity and material prosperity is that spiritual prosperity is founded on understanding of the inexhaustible, omnipresent substance of spirit as the source of supply, the material belief in that the possession of things constitute prosperity. 3, through the right use of divine ideas. Divine ideas are a foundational concept in Fillmore teaching. Fundamentally, prosperity is our proper use of ideas. Everything is first an idea in mind, and this law holds good not only in the creations of God, but in the forms made by man as well. 4. I no longer believe. This is a denial, Frank and Martha Guidici say. First of all, we have to be aware that we need to cleanse our consciousness. We have to begin to work with denials. Charles Fillmore was a great one. He never let go of the denials. He said that had we built our consciousness on the perfect pattern, then there would be no need for denials. But since it's very obvious that we have not built our consciousness on the perfect pattern, then we need to use denials.
Thanks, Lillian. Okay, as you would say, there's a lot in these paragraphs.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that last footnote 4 kind of addresses something that Janet spoke to last week or the week before, which is, well, why do we need denials? And so he kind of addresses that by saying, well, look, in a perfect world, we wouldn't need them at all.
Okay, I have a good story to share with you that is connected to this word, prosperity. And to first own that I had been reading ahead because I try to wrap my mind around what we're talking about. And that it was that day or the next day that I went out and started driving on it's not a highway, but it's a very busy road. And didn't get very far and the brakes went. The brakes were gone. It turned out to be a line had broken in brake fluid. That's why I didn't know that there was anything wrong with the brakes. And I'll tell you what, as my personality panicked, and I thought, I'm going to get killed or I'm going to kill someone else. And then I said, no. And I remembered the word. I said, I am healed, whole, and healthy. Help me to drive this car to safety. And I got that inner voice. It wasn't like he was sitting in the driver's seat. I was directed of how to handle this, where to go, how to start to use the handbrake. I did actions around that situation that I never would have known to do in my own humanness. And I still haven't gotten over the a magical, it's not magical, but that mystical shot of this is what we're talking about. That power of God is right there and saw me through to the safety stopping. And then I still was very scared. And I had to go to the bathroom. And I went into this office building where I'd stopped. And I asked the man, and I said, my car broke down and I really need to use the restroom. And he was so sweet and so funny, and he made me laugh. And as soon as I started to laugh, I could feel that voice and the presence kind of floated, and I was back in my body. And you can do this now. You know what to do next, practically speaking. But I know I'd be in the hospital right now if I had been navigating that on my own power. And it helped me to understand the chapter or the section, what this is. It's real. There really is a very powerful force at work to keep us going.
Oh, wow.
Was this experience recent?
Wednesday.
Oh my goodness.
Wednesday. And so far, the car is costing $1,600 to fix for the variety of things that had happened underneath, nothing to do with the engine or the other parts of it. That they said, wow, you are really lucky. This didn't happen on the highway, or it didn't happen. It wasn't just the line broke and the brake fluid dripped. It was a series of events under the car in the back somewhere. And they're working on the repair, and I've not had the car and not missed it. But I've been telling this story in my group because it really was so vividly real. And I was guided and protected.
Oh,
no question.
Wonderful.
Well, they would say that that's a miracle, but not, and then they would say, whoever they are, that miracles are very common. We just don't see them as such. I would say that, yes, it's mystical and it is a miracle.
And that's why I told you I felt foolish to bring it up. But then I thought, no, I did it earlier this morning and I told it in my other group. And I said, I'm telling you this. I don't want you to feel sorry for me. I want you to know that we are really guided and protected by power greater than ourselves in a very practical way.
So your denial was very small in that whole thing, but it was no. That was the denial. And then you went right into affirmation.
I don't know if you can see this, but it says expect a miracle.
Motto we keep in our
Accept.
This one is expect a miracle.
Oh, expect.
Accept and expect.
One is accept and the other one is
Yeah, we got it.
Expect. Oh,
I
both
like
of
that.
them.
Yeah.
It's a good thought to live with. Yeah. And you experienced it.
Well, you just gave us a practical demonstration of prosperity.
Oh,
She did. Okay.
Prosperity is a state of consciousness in which there is no lack of anything good, a consciousness of well-being. And as Claudia said, when you said no, would you be willing to consider that sprang from your commitment to the belief in eternal well-being being your inheritance as a child of God? And that guidance is yours also by virtue of your not just being a child of God, but saying yes to God, saying no to the limited reality, I'm going to die, and yes to the reality of there's a solution.
I'd like to agree with you, but I'd have to be honest and say the no was to my physical self, my personality, my sense of feeling, this is it. You, Janet, are not equipped to deal with this.
Exactly.
I wasn't saying no to God, though. I was saying
no. That's what
no
I said.
to myself.
You were saying no to your limited belief that you had no choices and you were screwed.
That's what he says, is that's what denials are.
Right.
That it's the clearing of what of race consciousness is what he would say, but the clearing of the pattern expectation, what that no, that's not going to happen here, and then that made way for God to speak to you.
It almost felt like, no, begone, Satan. Like I think of my personality sometimes and my shortcomings as like evil. And it was like, no, you're not going to take over this situation.
Get behind me, Satan.
Yeah. So that really helps me understand that, Claudia. Thank you.
Well, I think also, Janet, would you be willing to consider it's not merely intellectual, it was visceral.
Completely. And it was being humble and following directions. I was being told to go in a direction on the road, to go to this certain lane. I was given kind of an image of where I was heading, and it was this small office park. I never would have thought of any of that chain of events. I was out there, and if anything, I would have pulled over to the side of the road maybe, but there was nowhere to really pull over. So it was not about thinking. It was about relaxing into accepting help. And I had it. I heard it. I felt it. And it was like my personality part backed off and said, let God be in charge here. You don't know what you're doing. Let God be in charge. And I did listen. And I literally followed the directions. My son said, how did you get over there? I said, God told me. What can I tell you? And they all think I'm a little bit eccentric and crazy. But it was that. And I'm very, very grateful.
Oh.
Well, on that note, we've come to the end of our time together, and I want to thank you, Janet, for that concrete example of prosperity and prosperity consciousness. And I want to thank Claudia for pointing out that you began it with the denial, and that's exactly how this works. And so thanks, everybody. We'll reconvene next week and dig deeper into prosperity. And so as we bring our time together to a close, let's affirm the and our prayer for protection together. The light
of God surrounds us. The love of God enfolds us.
The
The
power
power of God protects us.
The
Presence of God watches over us.
Wherever
Wherever we are, God is,
and
all is
well.
well.
Amen.
Thanks,
Thank you, Marty.
everybody.
Thank you all. Have a wonderful week.
I'll see you
Yeah.
tomorrow.
Thank you.
Leo, thanks
Bye-bye.
for joining us, brother.
Remember, Marty's going to be at Davis, so
Anybody want to come to see me talk about the overcomer?
the link is in the email he sent out earlier.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody. Love ya.
See ya.
Bye-bye.
Have a
Love
great
you too.